I was resentful. I was mad just at life. I didn't know anything about dementia. I couldn't even spend 10 minutes with her in the same room without getting an argument. The formula really is the key to everything. I was at my wit's end. I couldn't even focus anymore. I was so overwhelmed. The deeper I got into it, the more people that were around me didn't understand.
Carolyn, thank you so much for being here and for being willing to share your story with so many other caregivers out there in the world. I have heard over and over again just how much caregivers feel so alone. And by hearing stories like yours, they start to feel more understood, they start to feel seen, and most importantly, they start to feel hopeful that there is something they can do or something they can try that can help make their caregiving journey feel a little bit lighter and feel a little bit easier. So what we're going to do here today is just have a open, honest conversation. There's no perfect answers, and I'm going to guide us step by step along the way. So thank you for being here.
Sounds awesome. I can't wait to share.
Okay, wonderful. And just for those of you watching, Carolyn and I have known each other for quite a long time. Yeah, how many years?
I started in 22.
Okay, so 2022, she's been a part of the Careblazer family. So I know a lot about her background, but I'm going to let her share whatever she wants to share. And so let's just go back maybe to before 2022.
Yeah.
Can you tell us who you were caring for?
Prior to caring for my mom, I was on the heels of caring for my dad. My dad was dealing with something that had nothing to do with dementia, but I became his 24/7 caregiver along with my life partner at the time. And my dad passed away at the end of 2020 in November. And I had no idea. I felt the weight of caregiving at that point. I felt the stresses of what it was like when a person was ending their life. And this is the first parent that I was dealing with, right? I've experienced the passing of people, but I never experienced my parents. And that whole dichotomy that whole thing was different. So my dad passes away in 2020. What I wasn't prepared for is that 2 months later, my mom would have a traumatic fall with a head injury. At this time, by taking care of my dad and taking care of my mom back and forth, going from house to house. My dad was in San Diego. My mom was locally within 20 minutes, but I was still going back and forth. And that pressure and that duress I was feeling, and it was such a foreign feeling for me. So now my dad passes, and 2 months later, my mom has head trauma. And I realized when the ER doctor says, hey, who's with her? I wasn't with her. My mom and I had a very hard relationship, right? And we didn't get along for most of my life. And I chose not to be in her life. But my sister moved away. And when she moved away overseas to the state of Hawaii, I realized everything was on me again. And especially, I thought to myself, I didn't even get to grieve my dad. Matter of fact, I don't even know what's happening with my mom, but I know somebody has to be there because I felt immediate conviction and guilt from the ER doctor. It says who's going to be with her. So I packed 2-week bag thinking no big deal. Long story short is when I got there, I started to notice things and I couldn't understand why things were the way they were. Mainly, I saw that she had incontinence issues. I started to see she wasn't taking care of herself or the house. She was just kind of existing. She did have a companion who was a few years older than her, who they'd always do everything together. But the more I paid attention to everything, and even if I called him on the phone, I'd say, hey, what's going on with mom? I found out he was more of an enabler. And it's not anything against him. It's just he didn't know how to deal with issues. And he kind of like tolerated everything. But when I came in, I'm like, this is unacceptable. So of course I came in looking like the bad person who was absent all this time. And that was the struggle that I was going through because I started to see things and started to understand more. And when I noticed that her medication was there, but everything was still sealed. And I realized, wait a minute, if you are a diabetic, you need to take this. She was on metformin or something. And by this time I'm calling and I'm freaking out because I'm realizing, how long has this been going on? And why aren't you helping her take the medicine? Basically putting the blame on him. And I started to see my mom for where she was at. And I realized that my 2-week overnight bag was going to be a little bit more intense. And that's the part that I couldn't handle, is because I was never in her life before. I didn't want to be in her life because we fought like cats and dogs. And now all of a sudden I'm put in this position. So needless to say, I was a bit resentful. I was mad at my sister. I was mad just at life because my dad just died and I'm a daddy's girl. So I felt like everything was going upside down.
It sounds like in the beginning, you stepping up to the plate to become like step into this caregiving role kind of came out of a little bit of guilt and obligation.
Yep. That's exactly it.
Yeah. I think this, I'm just saying this because I think it's so important. I think a lot of times when we hear about adult children caring for parents, it's always, most of the time, this story about how they've been great parents and there's great memories and they provided great care and love for you over the years. But there are so many, just as many stories like yours where maybe there wasn't a great relationship. Maybe they weren't the greatest of parents. Maybe she wasn't the greatest of mom. And now here you are stepping into this caregiving role. And there is going to be a lot of really big emotions going along with that.
Yeah, because I realize now in hindsight's always 2020, but I had to really get myself out of the way, but I couldn't. It was so big. And it was 50 something years of coping that I had to undo.
Did you suspect before the head injury, like, I mean, before she fell and had this head injury, do you think that there were cognitive problems happening beforehand?
I was clueless. I was absolutely clueless. And the reason why it went more in depth is because when I started to see the medication she was on, I didn't understand what the medication was. I only knew about metformin because my dad, he was in renal failure. I had an idea what that was about. And he was also a type 2 diabetic on top of it. So when I started to go, Mom, where's your doctor at? I didn't even know where a doctor was. And when I started to show up, the doctor was like, who are you and what are you doing here? Because I was like, no, when my mom goes into the exam room, I'm going to be there. They weren't used to that. And they were basically, okay, who are you? What are you about? And I was blessed now that I see it as an older adult, that my parents always had their documentation in order. They always had a trust, a living will, POA. I saw all these documents all my life, but I never understood what they were for. And so when I started to wise up and go, oh, I need to show this to them, to show them I'm their POA, because my dad had one and my mom had one. I want people to know that my parents were divorced, so I was bouncing from place to place up until my dad died. But when I showed the POA health directive for my mom, it had me singled out. They both had selected me as being primary. And I thought, well, I'll just take the whole book because I didn't know what to grab. I said, what do you need to at least allow me to be present? And from that point on, I said, I went to the first appointment. The doctor looked at me with a big question mark. I showed him the paperwork. He goes, show that to my front desk. I said, okay. And he goes, well, I'm going to be here from now on because I want to know what's happening. Because when I ask my mom, her standard answer is, I'm fine. I can do it. It's okay. I don't need your help. Right. And it was then at that first appointment that I learned what her medication was. And one of them was Aricept or donepezil, if I'm saying it right. And when I heard that, I'm like, what is that? And he goes, well, she's a dementia patient. And I went, what? And that was the very first time I ever heard dementia linked to my family or anything. I didn't know anything about dementia. To me, dementia was Alzheimer's, forgetfulness. And I went, okay, but I didn't know the degrees and the levels of dementia, nor was I interested in it because it wasn't part of my dad's life. And so I had learned not only was she a type 2 diabetic, she was a stage 3 renal patient and that her kidneys were failing miserably. And this dementia thing was a big thing.
Now, in the beginning, because you hadn't had much contact with her and, you were not a part of each other's lives as you became an adult, right? How did she receive you stepping in to help in this way in the beginning?
I don't want to paint a picture that I was completely removed. I didn't involve myself in her everyday living.
Okay.
I kept in touch with her as minimal as can be because I couldn't even spend 10 minutes with her in the same room without getting an argument because we're both pretty stubborn and headstrong.
Yeah.
If anything, we're pretty much alike, which I found out at the end. My sister was the apple of her eye. Her grandchildren were the apple of her eye. And when they moved away, I kind of by the oldest sibling, stepped into the role and said, okay, Mom, how can I help you?
Yeah.
Because I saw how she didn't say she was depressed, but I saw her energy level and everything kind of drop when they moved.
In the beginning, like those early days, early months, what were the hardest parts about that?
The hardest part that I recall was trying to figure out which part of your program discusses, and I didn't know I was actually doing it, is to become a detective. And I literally had to look around and say, what does she need? What does she have? What doesn't she have? How can I fill the void? How do I know where to be helpful to her? Because I walked into stacks of mail, and most of them were financial with the banking industry saying, we paid your bill, because she would write checks. We paid your bill. However, you have a $35 NSF, and you add those up and you're currently negative in your balance. And I was like, what's going on? So I literally had to figure out her financial status, her medical status. I realized that she wasn't cleaning up after herself. I saw some things that actually a kid should never see. And yes, I'm an older kid, but I will always be her kid, and that was another thing. It didn't matter what I said if I wanted to help her. In her eyes, I was always this little child that was always going to say, no kid of mine's going to tell me what to do. And so there was that tug of war, if you will. I think, but the hardest part for me really was figuring out her medical situation, her financial, and just her everyday living, and having her realize I'm here to help you, not to take over.
At what point did you realize, like, I need some help?
After a year, I was at my wit's end. And I think what it was is the deeper I got into it, the more people that were around me didn't understand. And because I was kind of losing myself, and I say that because I couldn't even focus anymore because I was so overwhelmed with my dad still. I was realizing, I found myself crying more and more, like I can't even grieve my dad properly. And then it got to the point of not only can I not grieve my dad, it's like I don't know what's going on with my mom. My sister's gone. I feel alone. And the people that I thought would surround me all of a sudden started finding other things to do. And so in this isolation, I remember sitting in front of my laptop computer and going, certainly I'm not the only one that's going through this. And I remember support groups, and I kept hearing, you need to find a support group, right? And I thought, okay, because I'm a big prayer, and I was like, and I kept hearing, you need to find a support group. And I'm
Where
like,
were you hearing that from?
if I told you, it's like God himself.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Literally, I'm a believer that the Holy Ghost really does talk to me, and I have promptings in that case. So I was like, I got to find a support group, because certainly I'm not the only one in this area that is going through this. And out of frustration, I looked, and I still to this day don't know how I found Dementia Careblazers, but I put support group, dementia support group in the search engines. Nothing locally came up. A lot of national stuff came up, and I thought, well, this isn't going to help me, because I saw myself going somewhere or talking to someone. My financial situation was a little bit compromised, and my mom had no money. That was the other thing. She had no money to fall back on. Some people kept telling me, you can get paid to take care of her. She would probably qualify for Medicare or Medi-Cal. People would tell me that, but nobody told me how to do it. I think I found you through Facebook. I don't even know, but it was definitely a social media outlet. And it said something about a free session for a survival guide, I believe it was. Right. And I'm like, a survival guide. That defines me. I'm trying to survive. And when I looked a little bit more into that, I realized that you had support groups. I didn't understand exactly what it was that Careblazers did. I just saw support groups, and I thought that was my mothership. And then so when I went for that, I went primarily for support groups, but I got so much more. And that's where I really started to turn things around for myself.
Careblazer, quick interruption. If you are watching this between December 3rd and December 10th, our Care Collective program is open for enrollment with special holiday time bonuses that are not available any other time of year, including access to our upcoming workshop in January, so you can start the year strong and set yourself up for the best caregiving year yet. The open enrollment is through December 10th, and anyone who joins by December 5th Also, we'll get a bonus of a private one-on-one consultation with me. Everything you need to know is in the description below this video. If you are someone looking for more support, now is the best time. All right, back to your video.
But I still struggled. And you might recall these times in group where I struggled because I couldn't understand what I was doing wrong and why I was getting my mom's hard reaction back. Because I was still doing the old method of communication with her, which was always a fight. And she was equally doing it back to me. But I was getting mixed messages because nothing was making sense.
So, what would you say was one strategy or one moment or one shift that you had after joining the program that got things to either change between you and your mom, or maybe just for you, or maybe helped make sense of everything that you were going through?
I make jokes about it, but there was one live that you had done. I want to say it was within the first year, and you said, we're going to talk about formula for change, or change, or was it formula for change? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
And all I remember is formula. And I thought, okay. And I remember I took notes. I was listening to everything that you had to say. And I'll never forget it. You blatantly said how you think and what you think creates a feeling, and how that feeling is expressed is going to change how your outcome will be. You have to decide from a feeling buffet what your thoughts are going to be to get that feeling to have a certain outcome. And I'm like going, sounds simple enough. I struggled to that darn thing, but the formula really is the key to everything. It doesn't have to be for dementia caregiving. It's like life. And I remember you saying, this is just basic psychology 101. And I'm like, why can't I not grab it? And I realized, Carolyn, you're too much in the way. Your method of operation isn't working. It may have worked because you walked away from everything and didn't want to face it, but now it's in your face. What are you going to do?
Do you have a specific example of maybe how you would have responded or functioned before understanding the formula, and then how by applying the formula things went different?
Yeah. My mom was mobile probably the first year that I was there. She was able to walk around with a walker. And towards the end of the journey, she became bedridden. And while she was bedridden, I got pretty much into a routine, and I kind of knew how her body worked and how she would be. She always woke up very early, and I could tell because I could hear the TV in her room, and it was usually around 5 a.m. By the time I walked in, she had really bad incontinence. I can't even begin to, I feel like the incontinence queen at this point. And I hate that because it's something that I never in my life would have thought I would do. But when I went to her bedroom, her door was always shut. And ironically, she had a mirror on this door before you walked through it. And I would see myself walk up to this mirror to get to her door. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to be dealing with today? So with this incontinence, not to be too graphic, but I knew what I was dealing with before I even opened the door, because I could kind of tell by the odor.
Mm-hmm.
And my first thought was, oh God, I got to deal with this again. So my whole countenance was defensive. What do I got to deal with? It was really, really negative. But the irony is my mom, she would always be happy and cheery, right? And she would not even know that this was happening. But I didn't. I took it personally for whatever reason. And what ended up happening over time, based on this formula, which probably was the last year, I looked at that mirror as I was coming down the hall, because by this time she had number 2 incontinence issues, and she would have it literally 3 times a day, and it was everywhere. So I was sick of doing laundry. I was sick of dealing with it. And to the point that it literally was like, that's all I did was laundry 3-4 times a day. And then having to clean up everything and disinfect everything because I didn't know what she was touching and what she was touching on herself. And it's just and plus being bedridden is a whole different thing, that it broke me. And I remember walking down the hallway and I looked at myself in the mirror and I heard your voice. You're in my head, Doc. But I looked at myself and I thought, what are you going to do? Do you think she's doing this on purpose? And I stared at myself in the mirror and I went, it's not her fault, Carolyn. It's really not her fault. So what are you going to do? And I thought, when she wakes up in the morning, the first thing she does, I may not see her because I see a pile of blankets. I see this. hi, with a finger. And she'd always have a smile on her face. I opened the door slowly and I go, good morning, Mom, which was different. And she goes, hello, like that. She was very pleasant. Yes, the same thing happened. But I realized the mirror I was staring at that was reflecting me had to change my thought. But I realized that when I walked in the door, I was her mirror. And when I saw her react to me, I go, Mom, I'm going to have to clean your sheets and clean everything again. She goes, but you already did it. And I said, I know. I'll have to do it again. But it's okay. It's not your fault. Just work with me. She was completely compliant. She was pleasant. It was everything that your formula had taught. But it
Would she not have been pleasant and compliant with that kind of task before?
Well, it's because she was reacting to me being all upset. And she would always, before she would be compliant with me, but it was more apologetic because she was reacting to me. I was upset. I was frustrated. And she kept saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And I realized she doesn't have control over this. And it was to the point where she felt this big, but I felt that big. And I was crying. And I don't know if half of it was because of frustration or if it was just realizing I could have avoided all that negative energy if I just would have started doing what I'm doing now back then.
So you think your mom noticed the shift in you and she reacted?
Totally. And the reason why I say that is I'm in my early 60s. God, I've spent probably 55 years of my life fighting my mom. And when this happened and this change within myself happened, my mom started to become my mom, which was weird because my mom, and I need to clarify this too, my mom, I never took her to a neurologist. She was diagnosed as dementia. So I always say she had mild cognitive because there were lucid points and then there weren't. So I didn't know what to make of it. But my mom suddenly started comforting me and saying, I know you're by yourself. She started to see me, but in the process, she let her wall get smaller. And when she let her wall get smaller, my wall got smaller. And my mom ended up passing away. And I'm happy to say that at the end, we had our walls completely dismantled. It was the ending that I never would have imagined in all these decades. And it was one of these things that I'm so pleased, even though I was resentful and fighting being a caregiver and being thrown into that whole thing on the heels of my dad's passing. It's my mom I miss. I mean, my dad, I'll always be a daddy's girl, but because I got a taste of what it's like to have a relationship with my mom and that it was so short-lived towards the end of her life, we crammed in. I didn't know we were cramming it in because I didn't know when her end of life would be, but I got to share music with her. We made each other laugh. I got to learn things about her. She got to learn things about me.
Did you ever think that kind of ending was possible based on how it started out?
Never, never. If anything, like Careblazers in general, it shaped who I am today. And I realize now who I entered in is not the same person that I'm today.
Yeah.
And it just made me a better person. The caregiving experience with mom was a hard one, but I understand dementia a lot better. And I have people coming up to me now that are part of the program, that are not part of the program, that are aware of what I've been doing. And they ask me all the time, hey, I'm seeing something. It's a strange reality. Because it seems, I don't know if the world just got smaller, but it seems like a lot of people are dealing with this now.
What would you tell a caregiver who comes across this video and is feeling like you did at the beginning, resentful, showing up maybe out of guilt or obligation with maybe not the most close, loving relationship with the person they're caring for? What would you tell them?
My first thought is, it seems like it's going to last forever, but it doesn't. Because somewhere in this journey, as you learn where your loved one is at, you'll have this epiphany. And I remember having this epiphany where I ended up going to the room and crying because I realized out of frustration, God, I just want my life back. I just want to have my life back. I want to go back to doing what I want to do. I feel trapped. I feel trapped in a dementia box. I feel trapped, not even dementia, a caregiver box. And I just want to get out, but I can't. Because the only way for me to get out is for me to walk away and say, find someone else to take care of you, which you know you will never do because it's your mom, or she dies. And when I realized that the only way for me to be free is for that end, it crushed me, because your parents are supposed to live forever. And even in this hard situation with my mom and our relationship, it was a difficult pill to swallow, but that's when I realized I need to change. And I can't let all this negativity inhibit me, because it doesn't make me into a pleasant person or to the people around me. I mean, I was under such duress, I even ended up with shingles at one point. It's a hard road. I mean, I would say just meet your loved one where they're at, accept where they're at, see the positive, and try to do the best, because it doesn't last forever.
Even though I'm sure it felt like that in the moment many times.
And you know what? I love the people in our support group. Surround yourself with people that are like-minded. It lightens the load like you will not believe. And help yourself by getting it out of your system by talking about it.
What would you say you're most proud of yourself as a caregiver?
That I did it in spite of myself.
Mm.
I really had to get myself out of the way. I would have never thought in a million years that I would be the one to take care of both my parents. But as a caregiver itself, I'm really proud that I got to spend those moments with them, especially up until their very last moments.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
And I thank you for what you share.
Yeah. As we come to a close, is there anything you want to share or say that maybe I haven't asked?
No, I think there isn't one silly question. What I learned, that if you think your inquisitiveness or your curiosity or your question of, oh, that's too silly to ask, or it's too personal, or you'll find out when you open your mouth and you say something, 9 times out of 10, somebody's going, I was too afraid to say something. But I'm so glad you did, because now I know. And I think that's probably the greatest thing, is to just have the courage to step out. You had the courage to step into an arena of the lion's den of caregiving. Have the courage to take care of yourself and find that help.
On a personal note, I will say the Carolyn from 2022 and the Carolyn now in 2025 has been a lot of beautiful growth to witness and see. And I've seen how over the years you've shifted, especially since your caregiving journey is now at an end, how you're showing up and helping and really serving as a guide and mentor to a lot of other caregivers. And it's just been a very beautiful thing to witness. So I thank you for sticking with it, even though I know it was so hard.
No,
Mm.
I thank you for allowing me to stay around, because, there's a part that you just want to give back.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
The greatest experience that you can have is to share it with someone else.
Well, thank you for doing this interview with me, because this is a major way to give back as well. There's going to be lots of people who watch this, and I hope your story will be a message of support and inspiration for them, that beautiful change can happen and relationships can flourish and bloom, even if they weren't always the greatest of relationships.
Amen.
Yeah, totally. So, all right. Thank you so much, Carolyn.
Thank you, Doc. Thank
All right.
you. And
Bye.
bye.
Also, Nico gets a belly rub for every person who subscribes from this video. So if you haven't already, click the red subscribe button. It's totally free, and Nico says thank you very much.